And to keep her true, she told me, Johnny, all I want from you is just a little bitty piece of the big bamboo.
Hi, this is Allie Ford, and I'm here with Paul Howland from Unsteady. This is GearHedz, a Jade Lounge production. And Paul, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on GearHedz.
Thank you for making the very long drive out here to our little humble studio. We appreciate you.
It's only about an hour, but thank you.
Yeah. And it's not even LA, dude. I want to get right into Unsteady.
Sure.
You are currently the guitar player in Unsteady.
That's right.
Give me a little bit of your Unsteady history.
Well, I played bass in the band from 1992, 93 until 1999. And then I've been kind of in and out of the band on bass a couple different times after that up until around 2005. There was a couple of different reformations and stuff like that, but the band's been chugging along steadily since then. I don't know exactly when this particular lineup was assembled that's currently together, but I've been following them on Facebook recently, and I've sort of been getting back into my guitar playing. When I was a little kid, I played guitar, but I never got any good, never played in any bands, always played bass in bands, and so I happened to see that they were looking for a guitar player, and I, asked them if they thought it'd be weird if I came down and auditioned, but apparently it wasn't too weird for them, so they asked me to come down. And
what is it like for you being in a band with another bass player,
well,
rocking your bass lines that you wrote, by the way, right?
Well, the thing is, one of the things is, so it's kind of flattering a lot of the time because Brent Ford, the bass player for Unsteady presently, kind of likes to gas me up and tell me how great I was as a bass player and how hard the bass lines are and stuff. But the reality of the matter is, in order for me to even play guitar in this band, I don't think I could do it with very many other bass players, because playing bass is kind of like you're kind of the fulcrum of the rhythm section. So when I was playing bass in Unsteady, I was constantly listening to the drums, the organ, and the guitar, as well as the horns and the vocals, and trying to find a rhythmic place to get in and sort of make everything coalesce and make sense. But playing guitar, I'm in a different area of that function as far as rhythm section wise. So the fact that Brent is playing bass in the band makes it possible for me, because he holds it down real solidly, so I don't have to. If it was somebody that was wandering all over the place in their bass playing, it would make it real difficult for me, because then I'd be thinking about playing bass instead of concentrating on guitar, which I need to spend all of my concentration concentrating on what I'm doing on guitar.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So.
Well, that's also flattering for Brent to hear, yeah. I'm sure. I'm quite sure.
He's getting embarrassed.
So in those gaps of time that you were not with Unsteady, did you hook up with any other bands?
Not really. I kind of moved into a lot more DJing and stuff. I did play in some other bands with Kevin and John that were kind of like offshoots of the Unsteady thing, but I didn't really venture back out into the band world as a whole during that time frame. From about 2008 through the present time, I've been doing a lot of DJing and stuff like that. So that kind of took over the space that I had. I quit playing bass altogether in 2005. Actually, I've quit a couple times, but it really took in 2005, and that's when I quit initially in like 2000, and right after I quit the band, and that kind of like opened up a lot more time. I had all this extra time I didn't know what to do with, so one of the avenues that I started exploring was doing a lot of DJing. I started DJing, playing dubstep, and it kind of evolved. Now I'm playing a lot more house music and that kind of thing.
Is that locally here in San Diego?
Yeah, here around town. And I play a radio show that's had a couple different homes, which is currently on Sub FM, and I'll give you the URL for all my DJ stuff.
What type of a radio show is it?
It's an internet deal. There's DJs from all over the world that play bass music of different stripes, drum and bass, dubstep, techno. There's some reggae guys on there, house, all kinds of things.
Yeah, where can we hear this?
www.sub.fm/P-MAN.
Okay, and we're going to add that also when we upload this.
Excellent.
We will add that to that.
And then that's got all my other, if you go to that page, that's on the Sub FM DJ page, that's got all my other URLs for my DJ stuff.
Okay.
So I present that show every 2 weeks and just do it for my own home studio. It's a 2-hour show, so that keeps me, I haven't been doing a lot of gigging, particularly since I started playing in Unsteady again, so that kind of keeps my hand in there as far as getting new music in and stuff like that. So
great.
On the DJ front.
So I've been sitting here noticing
my t-shirt or
gear
my hat
outfit that you're wearing, which is so awesome, by the way. I love it. Thank you for outfitting yourself accordingly.
My pleasure. I figured those would start some good talking points.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
This is
you got an Ernie Ball hat on.
Yeah, Ernie Ball. This is great company. It's Ernie Ball. If you're watching, you know.
What kind of a guitar are you playing right now?
The guitar I'm playing right now, that's my main guitar, is a Schecter Fastback PT3 black with maple fingerboard. It's from 2014, made in Korea. It's an excellent guitar. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife type guitar in that it has humbucking pickups in both positions, but you can also switch them to single coils. So it gives you the ability to have like a Telecaster type guitar and the equivalent of like a Les Paul or something that's humbucking equipped. So it's kind of like two guitars in one. But I mostly use the single coil settings because for Unsteady, they just want a real sharp, cut through type guitar tone.
Do you have other guitars too?
I got a bunch of guitars. I have a bad problem with gear acquisition syndrome.
Collector.
So if anyone wants to contact me and talk to me about that, I'd be happy to make some deals. To
What's
get
your
some
favorite one?
My
What's
favorite
your go-to guitar.
My favorite one now is the black Schecter Fastback that I was just talking about, and I also have another one of those that's the rosewood fingerboard with the sunburst finish. I was trying to get another sunburst one because I really like those, the way those look, but I found the black one with the maple neck. But I like to have, you really need to have two guitars or two basses at a minimum, in my opinion, because you need to have a backup, and then you need to also be able to take your back. So kind of technically you need three. At a minimum.
I see now why you have this issue with gear.
And then I have a bunch of other ones that don't really have any rhyme or reason to them, but you know, spouses, this is the thing. 3 is like 1 when it comes to guitars, okay?
Okay, and why
or significant others. You need one. You need a backup so that you can take two guitars or two basses with you to the gig, in my opinion. Unless you are really comfortable with trying to borrow somebody else's guitar right before a show. If something happens to your guitar, it's also nice in case you break a string. You don't have to change a string. You know,
you swap it out.
You just swap out, grab the other one, and you're off to the races. And then the reason why you want 3 is because you want one that can be in the shop getting worked on, while you still have 2 that you can take with you to go out and play with. So, and that seems really excessive. You know, especially since when I'm talking about the 3, you want the same basic guitar. Because you don't want to switch over to your backup guitar and then have it be totally different. Sound different, and you have to change all your settings, and it's not going to play the same way and stuff like that. So
triplets. You need triplets.
You need 3.
Yeah.
So the Rosewood one, I have to get it fixed. The wiring's all screwed up, but I actually prefer it. That's actually probably my favorite one. But as far as playing wise, do
you have someone that you take your equipment for fixing?
There's a couple guys, but I haven't. It's been so long since I've had instruments that I haven't really found a person yet to take them to.
We know a guy.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, the guy. What's his name? Madrigal.
Rob
Madrigal.
McGargle.
Sorry, Rob.
It's okay.
Rob's a nice guy. Name. Rob gave me a huge pile of strings when we played at the high school in El Cajon.
Yeah.
I came to pack up my gear, and there was a big pile of strings. So thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob McGargle. Very good. Very nice.
But I'm looking for somebody, so maybe I'll.
I hear he's like genius status guitar fixer.
And he works over at Taylor Guitars too, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Or did he?
Yes, he does.
I had another buddy that worked at Taylor for a while. Great local company.
Yes, we're super huge Taylor fans. All around Taylor fans.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your musical background a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go way back to when you were a little nugget. Did you come out the womb being musical, or were you a lessons guy, or?
I'll tell you what happened. There's two kind of like formative. Well, there's multiple things, but when I was a kid, we used to go to my grandma and grandpa's house all the time, and my grandfather played harmonica. He played the jaw harp, and he also had what I call the little dancing man. I don't know if you've seen that, where it's got the little plank that you stick under your leg.
My dad had
and
one
you hit
of
it
those.
and it makes it dance and stuff like that. And then my grandmother played the guitar and sang. So a lot of times after dinner we would just play, like Wildwood Flower was one of the big staples, and so songs like that, sort of like bluegrass country type stuff. So, and then I found out from my parents that when they were in high school, they both played instruments, which they didn't end up pursuing, but I sort of had it in my mind that everybody played an instrument, and you just and they would always have like guys coming down to the school, the grade school, or gals, musicians coming down to demonstrate their instruments. So I always thought, well, that's just so you can pick what instrument you're going to play, because everybody plays an instrument, And there's sort of like multiple events. One of the events was on television, and I believe this was at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I saw Alvino Ray, the great Alvino Ray, playing his pedal steel guitar on television, and he used to make that literally make the guitar talk. So I was all excited about that, and I was like, I want to play guitar. Right. So my parents got me in guitar lessons, which was great, and I took lessons from Vicky Caudill in San Diego, who later was with the New Expression music store / they were also like a folk kind of bluegrass group of musicians that played and recorded, and they were kind of like the hub, sort of like for that scene of music. And another big thing was, as I was telling you about the people that would come through the school, there's a guy that plays contrabass, and he's based out of UCSD. He's a professor at UCSD named Bertram Turetsky. And he came down and demonstrated his contrabass, and he's kind of like an avant-garde classical 20th century sort of musician, as well as like a really good jazz musician and everything. So he was doing all this crazy stuff, just like rubbing the bass with his hands and playing with the bow behind the bridge, and I just thought all that stuff was amazing.
Performance art.
So that kind of put the seed into my mind about playing bass. And then when I got into high school, my brother had bought a bass, and I sort of traded him for a synthesizer that I had bought, and that was sort of all she wrote as far as the guitar was concerned, like, because it was just, at that time, this was like, 1980, 81, like, this was like pre-Flea. So, like, if you played bass, you could just instantly get into like 5 bands. So, and I love bass. So, like the first time, I remember vividly, like the first time I ever played a bass, and it just resonated with me. But so the guitar kind of went onto the back burner pretty much from then on. And then I sort of got back into it, just goofing around at home a couple years ago. But
And now it's your main focus in the band you're in.
yeah,
Interesting.
and I practice my butt off and spend way too much money on gear and everything else, you know.
Let's keep talking about gear.
Sure.
That was a really amazing segue.
Thank you.
Do you have pedals that you use?
Yeah, this is the kind of the main one, the Ethos.
Okay.
Here, I'll show you the back of the t-shirt. I don't know if you can see it. Kind of looks like this one.
Ethos Override.
But I have the Ethos Clean 2 pedal. It's like a preamp pedal. That's like my main source for my guitar tones, which I really like because the idea that I got for this thing was I had read an article many years ago by the great Pete Cozy, an interview with him, and he was talking about how when he was touring with Miles Davis, he tried to put together a situation out of guitar pedals, that was in its infancy at that time. This was like 1968, 1970s, early 1970s. So he tried to put together a way to sculpt all of his guitar tones with guitar pedals, because when they were on tour, then he would just rent an amp and just run into the amp clean and reproduce all his pedals that way. So somehow I got that idea in my head. And of course, nowadays, the pedal situation is out of control. There's all kinds of different pedals, from boutique stuff all the way down to, inexpensive stuff. So I was thinking along those lines when I started putting my rig together. And I had an old PV Bandit 65 guitar amp, which is well known to be a really good amp for clean guitar tones. So I got this pedal, the Ethos Clean 2, and a few other pedals, and started sort of using that to be the basis for my tones for the Unsteady stuff. And this is also why, I like the Schecter guitar, just to go off on another tangent. The Schecter guitar, or any guitar that's along those same lines where it has humbucking pickups that you can coil tap and use them as single coil pickups, I was looking for something where I could get real nice, warm, jazzy, clean tones, which is usually like a neck position humbucker. But the Schecter has the ability to give you either that or a single coil, which is more like less bottom endy kind of type of deal. But with the pedal, I can get all the tones I want, and then it just goes into my amp. I now have a Quilter amp that I use, which is in the same function as the PV. It's just basically making everything louder, but it's got more wattage than the PV and a better speaker, and it's just louder, and it's also considerably a great deal lighter than the PV. So that's another part of my whole thing, is how to try to get everything to where I can get in and out of the club easily.
Very consistent.
Yeah.
From musicians that we're talking to.
Is that right?
Yeah, very consistent. The lighter the better.
Yeah.
As long as it packs the same punch, you know. So
the Quilters are great on that front. I got the one with the 112 speaker, and it's 100 watts. It's got a ton of headroom. So in a way, I think, I was thinking about this before I came over here. The thing that's interesting about the Quilter part of the equation going with the preamp is that the Quilter has, like I said, a lot of headroom and a lot of clean power, and it just reproduces what's coming out of the preamp and the other pedals. But I don't think people often realize one of the big benefits of using tube amplifiers is the high headroom and the volume and the clarity when you're not using it as a distortion type tone. So the Quilter provides that at like a fourth of the weight of anything tube, so it's great. And I notice a lot of sound people commenting on it. They've all seen them because a lot of guitar players are switching over to them now for that exact reason, so they can just get in and out of the club without having, because most musicians don't have health insurance.
No.
So we can't afford to throw our backs out and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, but the quilter's great. I love it. And they're here in California. They're up in Costa Mesa, I believe. Everything's made up there. I'm big. I'm kind of split in philosophy. I like stuff that's like expensive, hand-built, custom, etc., made in the U.S., things of that nature. But I also like cheap things, too. Like I have a lot of cheap pedals. Like I have a reverb pedal that's from a company in China called Biang, I think it's pronounced, Biang. It's like $50 reverb pedal. It sounds amazing. It sounds great.
Interesting.
Guitar
How long
players.
Have you had it?
There's a great website for you called cheaperpedals.com, and they have all the Biang stuff.
But how long have you had yours? Is it lasting? Cheap but good?
They're one of the better cheap ones. There's some other cheap ones. I don't know. Are you guys into like talking bad about companies that people don't like, or should I just not mention them?
No, wait. We're here to talk about gear, and if you have advice for other musicians about gear to stay away from, I think it's fair to talk about.
I think the Biang stuff is really solidly built. They have like thumb screws. They actually have a battery compartment. A lot of pedals don't even have battery compartments anymore. It's got a thumb screw on the back. It's a nice solid metal enclosure. All the switches and jacks work really well on it. I've bought stuff from this company called Joyo, which is another Chinese company, and they're pretty popular. And I've bought some things that worked fine, but I bought like a boost pedal from them that basically just didn't work, like right out of the box, like the switch didn't work. Mm-hmm. So that's the trade-off. When you're buying cheaper stuff, that's one of the big problems is sometimes it's like they use cheaper components. There's no way around,
right?
If you're trying to offer certain price points. But I have one of the Joyo preamps that works fine. It's always worked. But the boost that I got from Joyo was just dead on arrival, basically. So but the Biang stuff for cheap stuff is pretty great. And I'm looking at their fuzz pedals. They have a fuzz pedal that I've seen a few videos on. That seems pretty amazing. They're all around $50. I mean, it's ridiculous. But like this pedal, the Ethos pedal, was several multiples of $50.
Right.
So like I don't mind spending money on something if it's for a reason, Right. But so there's where, and I like weird stuff that nobody else likes. Like I like PV guitars and stuff like that. I have a couple of PV T25s. If anyone out there would like to trade a T25 for a T60, please get hold of me through my information. Thank you.
Let's talk about your musical influences a little bit. So you were really coming up in the 80s.
Yeah. The other huge influence on me when I was a kid, and I always tell this story, when I was 10 years old, this would have been 1974, we went to one of my dad's Navy buddies' family home. I think it was James Mason, although I'm not sure about that. But anyway, his son was like, oh, this was when I was already playing guitar and stuff like that. He's like, oh, you like music? I was like, yeah, I love music. So he's like, come here. So he puts on Black Sabbath Paranoid, put it on the headphones for me. And, I was totally stunned and shocked and didn't know what to think. But like on that same, like kind of like when you watch a car wreck, you can't turn your gaze away from it type of feeling. And then he came back when the record was over and was like, you want me to turn the record over? I was like, yeah, please. So that like made a huge, huge impression on me. And I've never played in any heavy metal bands or anything, but I like the like dark, heavy side of things a lot. So that's what kind of like when I started getting into the dubstep music, it was on that same dark, spooky vibe, spooky. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like it's almost to me like the music I like is like Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds versus like Saw.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It says just creepy.
Yeah, you're not about the gore.
No, I mean, I like gory movies.
Not for you.
Not particularly.
But spooky, I get it.
Spooky. And I guess some ska is kind of spooky. The specials are pretty spooky. Some of that stuff, like Ghost Town. Ooh, Ghost Town. So
were you always a fan of ska?
Kind of tangentially. I didn't really get into it very heavily until I started playing in Unsteady. I got into it a lot more. And John Roy schooled me on a lot of this stuff. And then we ended up opening up for, like, we opened up for the Scotalites several times.
Yeah.
So that just opened my whole mind frame up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I became I totally just love everything that comes out of Jamaica from that point on. Like, it's just, that's like the source of music in the West as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The beating heart.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because, like, being into, getting into dubstep and dance music and stuff, that's all based out of the UK. So, like, in the UK, Jamaican music is kind of the way the blues music is the roots for rock and roll and everything in the United States. And in the UK, the basis roots of the dance music over there, especially the drum and bass, the dubstep, all that stuff, it's all based on the Jamaican reggae sound system culture, So it's interesting just how all that kind of stuff like ties together.
Yeah, it is interesting.
And that's a whole, like, I love sound systems. I've been to a few sound system shows here. That stuff's amazing too.
What's your favorite? So with Unsteady, you played around San Diego for quite a long time now.
And we played around on tour when I was back in the 90s when I was playing bass too. So
okay.
We played all around the country and everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
What's your favorite San Diego venue to play in? What's the most comfortable, best size venue that you've been in? Do you have more than one?
I don't know. I guess probably the Casbah, the current location of the Casbah. It's just great. It's like great size main room. They have the little lounge area in the back.
Yep.
You can have sort of like 2 shows going. Like you could have like a DJ or something in the back. There's like a socializing area outside. Nobody seems to complain about the noise ever. But also the Kava Lounge, I guess, probably too. That was kind of like more when I was doing my thing, DJing more of the time. That was sort of my home base for a lot of the things that I was involved in DJing wise. Which,
Kava Lounge
of course,
used to be the Velvet.
And it used to be the Casbah too before that
yes.
too. And so I've played like every iteration of that place except the Pirates Den. It was the Pirates Den briefly in like sometime there in the 90s. The guy that ran the Green Circle Bar in downtown San Diego, which was kind of like that rare groove acid jazz scene, started this place called the Pirates Den, which was in the Velvet Casbah location. So
yeah.
But
and now it is the Kava Lounge.
Now it's the Kava Lounge, and it's been through a couple owners now, but it's going strong again. So, and that's just that place is just great. It's just a small place. You don't need to make a ton of money to like cover the bar.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cool, like more experimental nights that happen down there, and then also like the AC Lounge for DJing is a classic San Diego spot. Organized Grime put me on a bunch of times there, and I played at one of the early ones when they were doing it in El Cajon too. When I was doing my DJing, when I say when I was doing my DJing, I'm still available to do DJing, but I'm not putting a lot of energy into like finding gigs and stuff because the Unsteady stuff is keeping me real busy.
Yeah, Unsteady is busy.
But I don't know. It's like all the venues. Like I don't know what the venues are called anymore because there's a lot of venues that have changed names so many times, and I haven't been back, so I don't know when people say the names of places what they're referring to. So,
my personal favorite venue in the San Diego area is the Belly Up Tavern.
Yeah, that's
I
a
like
good.
the size of it. I like the stage setup. I just like the whole vibe of the room. They have a little bit of theater style seating in the back.
Yeah.
Nice big dance floor. Nice big stage.
That's always nice vibes there too. I don't think I've ever seen a fight in that place or anything and it's always like packed full of people that are partying really thoroughly, but
happy people. Yeah,
they never seem to get out of line. It's just nice. Everybody that works there is nice. Yeah, that's up there too for sure. Yeah, definitely.
You guys just played there recently.
We did. We opened up for the English Beat.
The English Beat.
Yes.
What was that like?
That was fun. It was packed.
Scary.
Because of the English Beat, it was super packed. And apparently some of those people liked us enough to track us down and come see us at one of our other gigs. I think it was at the Ugly Dog. Maybe Brent knows. He's nodding his head and shrugging his shoulders. But
Brent
there were
has no
several
voice
people
right now.
that saw us, I think for the first time opening for the English Beat, that actually sought us out and came to see us play.
Paul,
Yes.
if you could choose any artist in the world in any kind of a time for any type of music, your super faves, to make a super band, who would you choose?
Well, I've thought about this question after listening to other GearHedz podcasts, and I came to the conclusion that if I were either the master of space and time or knew the master of all space and time, that my ultimate ideal band situation would be to play in Ozzy-era Black Sabbath in an alternate universe that Geezer Butler had tragically passed away.
Excellent. Excellent answer.
That's it.
That's the dream gig right there.
That's just the only thing that I know I'll never do, but that would be really rad.
But of course, we all know that Geezer Butler is never going to die.
No.
The man lives on and rocks on to this day.
Actually, it'd be even better if he didn't pass away, but like he had some other things that he had to do, so he could give me some tips and like a few lessons.
Maybe a
before.
little tendonitis recovery
Something
time.
like that. Yeah, even just like a short leg of one tour, would be fine. And then I could just be like, Mr. Butler, could you show me again the intro to Nativity in Black, please?
I love it.
That would be awesome. That's about it. I can't, yeah. I mean, I just thought of another one, but no, it still wouldn't be as good as Black Sabbath.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming
you.
out to Alpine and being on our humble little podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me, when can we see Unsteady coming up?
You can see Unsteady coming up on April 15th in Fallbrook, California at the Avocado Fest.
Bring the kids. It's a
Bring
good
the
kid
kids.
event.
It's kid-friendly.
Avos and Unsteady.
And then for other things and Unsteady, you could see us at the Ugly Dog Tavern in San Diego on 4/20.
Other things and Unsteady.
Which is like the Avocado Fest.
For adults?
It's a holiday celebrating an agricultural product.
Yes.
So, and with that product goes really well with music, so that is going to be a lot of fun. And for beer drinkers, they also have an excellent selection of tap beers that's just staggeringly good.
They have a cool patio, outside patio
Yes.
out there. That's where you guys will be set up. And
Yes, that's right.
it's a good vibe.
And I would also direct everyone to point your web browser to, I know I'm putting this right in front of my face, which is highly unprofessional, unsteady.bandcamp.com. You can buy a lot of our music there or just listen to it if you're just really too cheap to spend $1 or $2 on some music. Unsteady.bandcamp.com. Also, visit us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/unsteadyband. Tell us how much you love us, and we will appreciate it greatly.
All right. Thank you so much. And this is GearHedz.
Oh, my radio show.
Oh, let's do the radio show. Let's backing up.
everybody?
Rewind. Okay. Plug your radio show for us.
My radio show
Where can
is
we hear you?
presented on www.sub.fm every other Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time for 2 hours.
And it's called?
It's called The P-Man Show. And currently I'm presenting what I consider to be the very finest in current house music and whatever else I feel like playing.
Awesome. Paul Howland, Unsteady. Please, everyone, I'm going to take this opportunity to plug myself and my GearHedz podcast because my husband is giving me this again.
That's not the worst symbol that you could be given,
This. Right. I mean, at least it's not this.
Is that the social media? That means follow or subscribe, correct?
Really
On
what it
social
means,
media?
this is what it means. Really what it means is wrap it up.
Oh. Okay.
So he's communicating
I see.
to me, and it's fully distracting me right now.
That's all right.
But we have this podcast. It's a brand new baby podcast called GearHedz. And friends, it takes a village to raise a child. So do us a solid, subscribe, listen, share out, help a brother. Find us on SoundCloud, GearHedz. Find us on YouTube, GearHedz. This is GearHedz, a podcast for musicians about musical gear.
Presented
this is a
by
Jade Lounge production. Woo! Peace.